Hello, guys. Mm, so, I think there's been this Sati Pratha controversy that's been going on. I believe it started with Kunal Kamra, something like that, and then people have started. I'm seeing a lot of videos about how Sati is suddenly like a British invention, and it was never part of Hinduism, and this and that. I thought, like, wait a minute, is that the case? So I I thought let's do see it's a missionary propaganda about Satyaprada as if it didn't exist before that. Mm, so I thought, yeah, why not? Let's check with the DeepSeek. Uh, let's see what DeepSeek says, right? I mean, if any of you think what DeepSeek says is incorrect, you can leave a comment with evidence. Like because I'm going to talk to DeepSeek about. Let's start together. Um, Sati. Certain Hindu communities in India demonstration of wives' ultimate devotion. So the practice dates back to ancient times and is mentioned in some Hindu scriptures, though it was never universally practiced across all Hindu communities. Oh, yeah, fair enough. I mean, but it was still practiced, though not universally practiced. Abolition, the practice was outlawed by the British colonial government in India in 1829 through the Bengal Sati regulation, and it has been illegal in independent India since 1947. Okay, well and good. Um, let's see. Mentioned in some Hindu scriptures, right? Let's ask which Hindu scriptures mention Sati. Is mentioned in a few, but it's important to know that these references are not central to Hindu's teachings and the practice was never universally mandated. Oh my God, stop being woke. Just tell me. It's often interpreted different ways, and many modern scholars and reformers. Actors, obligatory. For instance, Madri, second of Pandu, immolates herself on his funeral pyre out of guilt and devotion. Ooh. Okay, let's go from the beginning. So the okay, it says the not central to Hindu teachings, so and so. Some here are some of the Hindu scriptures and texts where reference to Sati can be found. So Vedas do not explicitly prescribe Sati. However, some interpretations of the Rig Veda mention a widow lying beside her deceased husband on the funeral pyre. But this is often debated when this verse symbolizes the end of the marital bond. Okay, so Rig Veda 10.18.7. So if any of you want to refute DeepSeek, yeah, you can do that. Dharma Shastras, which are texts on law and ethics, occasionally mention Sati. For example, Angisara Smriti, Vishnu Smriti describes Sati as a meritorious act for widows. So the Dharma Shastras, particularly Agni Rasa Smriti, describes Sati as a meritorious act for widows. And Vishnu Smriti also mentions Sati as an option for widows, though it does not mandate it, but still there, like it. So I'm just interested in when was this thing like widow immolation or whatever conceived as a concept, and whether it was the British or whether it was the Hindus. So that's all I'm trying to find out, right? So it was in the Hindu scriptures, like and the Puranas, mentions Sati as an act of devotion. So Matsya Purana describes Sati as a virtuous act for women who wish to follow their husband death. Okay, who wish to follow means if you don't follow, you're not virtuous. That's what it implies, right? Like although it doesn't explicitly ask you to commit sati, it says doing sati means you're virtuous. So whoever probably wasn't doing sati, they were, kind of outcast, I believe, maybe by the society, the current, the contemporary society at that time, I guess. Agni Purana also mentions sati as a practice, though it is not present as obligatory. See, you need to understand how people treat each other when there is a agreed upon moral code, right? Let's say, for example, in India, you have these moral policing that happens during Valentine's Day and whatnot. You could argue that Valentine's Day, I mean, celebrating Valentine's Day is not illegal in India. Yeah, of course, it's not illegal, but moral policing does happen, isn't it? Like, so it's we need to have like a nuanced look in for the about these things, is what I'm trying to say. So the epics Mahabharata and Ramayana also, okay, epic contains reference to Sati. For instance, Madri, the second wife of Pandu, immolates herself on his funeral pyre out of guilt and devotion. However, this is portrayed as a personal choice rather than a religious obligation. Okay, so if they say so. Sati is not explicitly mentioned in Ramayana, but the concept of a wise devotion to her husband is a central theme. Okay. Now, medieval texts. Okay, during the medieval period, some regional texts and commentaries began to glorify Sati as a symbol of a wise loyalty and devotion. However, this is often influenced by the socio-cultural context of the time. Fair enough. So sati was never a universal practice, and this and that, and that had no basis in the core teachings of Hinduism. Okay, modern perspective. Yeah, yeah, okay. So when is sati mentioned? Okay, I'll ask it like that. What's the oldest mention of sati in Hindu scriptures? Sati is often traced to Rig Veda, especially 10.18.7. However, the interpretation of this verse is highly debated, does not explicitly endorse or describe the practice of sati. Okay. So the controversial verse. The verse in question is part of a funeral hymn and is addressed to a widow. It reads, okay, it keeps repeating the same thing. Rise, come unto the world of life, O woman, come. He is lifeless by whose side thou liest. Wifehood with this thy husband was thy portion, who took thy hand and wooed thee as a lover. Interpreted this verse as suggesting that the widow should rise from her husband and return to the world of the living, implying that she had and beside him in a symbolic or ritualistic manner. This has been used to argue that the verse hints the practice of sati. The verse is metaphorical, does not advocate sati, is seen as a call for the widow to return to her life after mourning her husband's death. What? Rise, come unto the world of life, O woman, come. He is lifeless by whose side thou liest. By foot with this thy husband was thy portion, who took thy hand and wooed thee as a lover. Honestly, I don't understand what it. So this text date, however, wait a minute, like so date post Vedic era around 500 BC to 500 CE. Okay. All right. So I also would like to point out here that I believe I read one of Ambedkar's books, right, where he mentions that the incoming steppe people, the Indo Aryans, they were forced to kind of practice endogamy, right, meaning the practice of marrying within the community. So they didn't want to mix with the local people at that time when they came. I'm talking about maybe 3,000 4,000 years ago. So they practice endogamy. So what would happen, let's say if there are 5 couples, if one of the couples, the guy dies, this woman would be alone, and in order to not disturb the what do you call that? Uh, what's the right word? Disturb the harmony within that group, right? They resorted to acts like sati, so that because maybe they thought like, okay, this lady is single, you probably have her needs there, we wouldn't want her to seduce one of our guys, or what I mean. That could be reasons like that, but because it's human nature, it's we have physical needs, we have mental needs and whatnot, right? So in such circumstances, they get rid of the odd man or the odd woman out, so that their this thing is not disturbed. So yeah, so that logically speaking, it makes sense if because they I don't know, like how big their society was at that time, uh, the migration that happened, and I just wanted to mention that here. Now, what else can we ask the deep seek? Sati. Okay, is Sati main, is Sati practiced anywhere near the step by any other ancient groups? That probably the incoming Indo-Europeans brought it from. Hindu communities in the Indian Empire does not appear to have been widespread customs there. Okay. Steppe regions did not have a documented practice of sati as it is known in India. Culture and trades. Okay. Some ancient cultures had practices that involved the death of or sacrifice of hero, but these were distinct from sati and rooted in their own cultural context. So the Scythians and the Sarmatians, who are also the steppe nomads, right, practiced the ritual killing of a chief's servants, wives, and horses upon his death. Ooh la la. This was part of their burial customs, but it was not specifically focused on widows or seen as an act of devotion like sati. Okay. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, described these practices in his accounts of Scythian funerary rites. Wow, that's interesting. So, these Indo-Europeans are basically from the Yamnaya tribes, right? Right? Scythians, I don't know, like if there was any. Okay, let's go. Norse and Germany traditions, widows of female slaves were sometimes killed or voluntarily chose to die to accompany their husbands or masters. This was part of their belief in an afterlife where the deceased would need servants and companions. Okay. Cultural versus religious origins. The practice of sati is believed to have emerged much later than the Indo-European migration, likely due to the post-Vedic period. It was influenced by a combination of cultural, social, and economic factors rather than being a direct continuation of steppe Indo. Sati in India became closely tied to the concept of the wife's devotion. Pativrata dharma was often glorified in certain texts and in regions. However, it was never a universal practice and was limited to specific communities. Yeah, I also remember reading somewhere that it was prevalent in the Rajput communities. Okay, what does sati mean? So, as is used in Sanskrit and carries a deep cultural linguistic, here's a breakdown of its meaning. Literally, it means truth, goodness, or virtue. In literal sense, sati means a virtuous woman or a true wife. It is often associated with the ideal of a devoted and loyal wife in Hindu tradition. Satya, Sattva, Sati meant a virtuous woman. So obviously, the origin of the word is in Sanskrit. So I don't think the British would have invented a Sanskrit word and then, that's a bit too much. Um, and what about Padmavat? Padmavat is basically based on a true story, isn't it? The movie. So are you guys trying to say that never happened? Like, like how long are you guys going to? I don't understand. Like, deny your own history, try to lie blatantly, and try to change your past history. You know what I mean? Like, grow up, guys. Hmm.